This is the second video in the US government and civics, looking specifically at the US Constitution. We did discuss in the last talk a little bit about the US Constitution, that the US was created after the Revolution, where they successfully got independence from Britain. And they had this chance to set up a government with a structure that most suited them. The colonists, the 13 colonies, were pretty much democratic colonies that they created. I say pretty much because only men were allowed to vote. Only free men that owned property largely were allowed to vote. But the concept of democracy was there. The concept of freedom was there. These colonists had come to America to break free. And in forming this constitution, the idea of democracy and the idea of freedom played a big part of it. The states, the 13 states that used to be 13 colonies that we'll now call the 13 states, had many years of living independently with their own governments, and they respected those governments enormously, while they were very happy that the US had become one country in its own right, and that the 13 colonies needed to work together. They were also very keen to hold on to the power that they used to have in their own colonies. So in structuring the US Constitution, there was a lot of concern about how powerful this central government would be. That the colonies themselves and individuals should have certain freedoms, and so the power of the government should be limited, and this is what the US Constitution does. Almost as soon as the Constitution was created, there was an immediate need to amend it, to change it. Within the founding fathers of the US, there were some, the Federalists, who felt that the government should be powerful. And there were others, the anti-Federalists, who believed that the central government should not be powerful. The power should still all reside within the states. And also that individuals should have their own power, should have their own freedom from the state. And so the anti-Federalists wanted to amend the US Constitution to provide more protection to the state governments and also to individuals. They wanted to amend the Constitution so to limit the power of central government. And there were 10 amendments that we will come on to, 10 very important amendments that we'll come on to. If the Constitution needs to be amended, there needs to be a process by which it could be amended. These first 10 amendments were agreed in 1789, so very soon after the Constitution was originally written. And the first 10 amendments together as a collection are called the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights and the 10 amendments inside the Bill of Rights are very important in GED. You are almost certain to have a question about it. In the Constitution, Article 5 of the Constitution, that V is a Roman 5, Article 5 of the Constitution says how the Constitution can be modified. Since the Constitution was created, there have only been 27 changes made in 250 years. For a change to be made, either Congress or a group of state legislatures can propose the amendment. The president does not have the power to amend the Constitution. Once it's been proposed, every state legislature, so that's every state government, looks at the proposed amendment. And only if three-fourths of state legislators agree, does it become law. And this is a simple chart here which shows that process. Might not be very clear to you, but that the process that I have described. Let's go back to those first 10 amendments in 1789. The Bill of Rights. The first 10 amendments are all known as the Bill of Rights. And these amendments, these changes, were brought in to restrict the power of central government, to get agreement between the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. And I'm going to run through these Bill of Rights in a little bit of detail, maybe more detail than is necessary. But in GED, this is such a big part of GED that you're bound to get questions about it. So the better that you know and understand the Bill of Rights, the better marks you're going to get in GED. The amendments, the first one, the First Amendment, freedom of speech, religion and media freedom, freedom to demonstrate and ask the government to do something. So people have the freedom to say what they believe in, to practice whatever religion they want. And there is media freedom. There's a free press, that people can go out onto the streets and demonstrate. They can write petitions to the government to do something. Amendment 2, the right to keep and bear arms. That means the right to own weapons, keep them in your own house. In the US today, many people have guns in their houses. There are gun shops that you can go and buy your guns in. In the UK, we think that people being able to own guns so easily is wrong. But in America, it's part of the Bill of Rights, the Second Amendment. And many Americans fight fiercely to keep this Second Amendment. There are people in America today who want to change this, want to remove this Second Amendment, so people don't have the right to keep and bear arms. But it's still there today. The Third Amendment, the army can't come and stay in your house without your agreement. The Fourth Amendment, that the authorities, normally the police, are not allowed to search your house or take things from you without good reason. The Fifth Amendment, the right to a fair trial. No trial unless there's enough evidence against you. And if you are being interviewed by the police before your trial, they cannot force you to confess, to say you're guilty. If during the trial, or if as a result of the trial, the jury decide that you are innocent, then the government cannot ask for another trial. So if you go before the judge and the jury and you are found innocent, the government cannot have another trial because they want a different answer. The Sixth Amendment. If you are arrested, you must have a trial quickly. You have a jury of ordinary people, and you can demand to have a lawyer, a solicitor to help you. Amendment 7, in a civil case, so this is not where the police are trying you, it's where two people are fighting in court about something, then you have the right to have a jury. The Eighth Amendment. The government cannot make you pay more than is reasonable in fines. And the government cannot inflict cruel punishments like torture, even if you are found guilty of a crime, convicted. The Ninth Amendment. Just because these rights are listed in the Constitution does not mean that you don't have other rights too. And the 10th Amendment. Anything that the Constitution doesn't say that Congress can do, that's the central Congress, which is part of the federal government, is left up to the states and to the people. Very important, that 10th Amendment. So unless it specifically says in the Constitution that the federal government has the power to do this, then it is left up to the state governments or the freedoms of the individuals. There are other rights to US citizens that aren't in the Constitution. For example, you have economic rights that give you the right to own property and to own a business. There are laws that protect people and ensure from discrimination. So it doesn't matter what your race is, what ethnic group you are, what religion you are, what age you are, whether you're a man or a woman. Everyone should be treated equally. But in return, the citizens, the people of the US, have civic responsibilities. So in return for these rights and these freedoms that you are given as a citizen of the US, you must give back. You must pay your taxes. If you are told that you must join up and join the army or the navy or whatever, you must go. If you are asked to be a member of a jury in a trial, you have to do this. And you must obey the law. Also, you are not forced in an election to go and vote, but you are encouraged to vote. America is a democracy. Democracies are very valuable things that society has fought to get. So it is really your duty to use that vote that you have been given. In elections in America, there are political parties, as there are in Myanmar too. And people with similar views join together to form their political party. And as they work together in a team, they have better chances of being elected. They will, within that party, choose candidates to run for government office, something that you are very familiar with. The political parties in the US have changed over time. At the beginning of the nation, there were federalists like Alexander Hamilton who wanted strong federal government versus anti-federalists like Thomas Jefferson who preferred a weaker federal government. Today in America, the two main political parties that dominate US politics are the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, the Republicans and the Democrats. The electoral process for the presidential elections are held every 4 years. They are always on the first Tuesday in November. And the next one is coming up. The next one is in November 2024. People will will put their names forward to be the candidates, the presidential candidate for the Republican Party and for the Democrats. Donald Trump wants to be re-elected as president, and he is the favorite to become the candidate for the Republican Party. And Joe Biden, the existing president, is keen and is the favorite to be the candidate again for the Democrats. And they and the other candidates will spend months, and they will spend millions and millions of dollars campaigning so that they win the nomination of their party. And they will have to go around America to all the states and visit their electoral colleges and their members to get the vote. Interestingly, when the vote happens in November, the president is not actually elected by the people. The people vote and the votes are counted, but instead of what happens after those votes come in is the electoral colleges will use those votes to vote for the president. So in reality, yes, the people do vote for the president, but the process is really weird. Every state has representatives that they send to the electoral college. There are 538 people in the electoral college, and large states like California will send a lot of people to the college, but Vermont might only send one because it's a tiny state. The members of the electoral college will look at the vote in the states that they represent. And if, for example, California votes Democrat, the majority of people vote Democrat, all of the electoral college representatives for California will vote Democrat. Even if California votes with a majority of only one for the Democrats, the fact that California has voted for the Democrats will mean that every single one of the electoral college representing California will vote Democrat. And it is that electoral college vote which is the important one. So each state has a certain number of people that go to the electoral college. A high population state has more people. So California has lots of people. Vermont has very few people in that electoral college. It's the electoral college that votes for the president, but they will use the votes of their state to direct them into how they should vote. So if Texas votes Republican, if Texas votes Republican by a huge majority, all of the electoral college members that represent Texas will vote Republican. If Texas votes Republican by only a very small majority of people, but there's just more votes for Republican than for Democrat, it will not make any difference than if it's a massive majority. If there is a majority in your state, all of the members of the electoral college representing your state will vote for the party that the candidate that won. This is complicated, I know, but this is the way that it works. It can mean that strange things happen. For example, when Donald Trump won the election in 2016, he was the Republican candidate, and the candidate for the Democrats was a lady called Hillary Clinton, who is the wife of a previous president called Bill Clinton. And in that election in November 2016, Hillary Clinton actually had more people in America voting for her than for Donald Trump. But Donald Trump won the election. The reason that he won the election is that in some states where Hillary Clinton won a huge majority, like California, that meant that all of the electoral college members representing California voted Democrat. But there were some other states, and I forget the names of the states, but let's say, for example, Florida, where Donald Trump won a very small majority. He won a very small majority in Florida. Florida is quite a high population state. The fact that it was only a small majority didn't matter because Florida majority was Republican. Everyone in the Electoral College that represented Florida was directed to vote Republican. This is how Donald Trump won the election. Now let's try some questions. Here we have question 1, where we're looking at a speech that Thomas Jefferson made in 1801. And we're going to be asked in this speech, what is the principle that is addressed in this statement? We'll go through the limited government, minority rights, popular sovereignty, and natural rights philosophy. Let's go through the statement and see which one it could be. All will bear in mind this sacred principle, that though the will of the majority is in all cases to prevail, that will, to be rightful, must be reasonable. That the minority possess their equal rights, which equal laws must protect, and to violate would be oppression. Quite a complicated statement, written more than 200 years ago. Old language, difficult for people who are not native English speakers. But let's see how we get to the answer. When we're looking at it, we're talking about this principle, and we're talking about the principle is all about the will of the majority, and should the will of the majority always prevail, or should we think about the minority, that the minority possess their equal rights, that they may be the minority, but these people have equal rights. Everybody has an equal right, which equal laws must protect. So I think that, let's go through it. I don't think it's about limited government. Limited government isn't really mentioned at all. Limited government is all about the Constitution and putting a brake on how powerful the government's allowed to be. B, minority rights. It looks to me like this is minority rights. But before I say B, let's look at C and D. C, popular sovereignty. Popular sovereignty, you may remember, is that this is all about the fact that the government has the power to govern because that power is bestowed on them by the people, because the people allow it. I don't think that's what this statement is addressing. And natural rights philosophy, well, you look at the word rights, and you see the word rights there, which might tempt you to see to the answer D. But actually, if you look at it again, it is minority rights, that the minority possess their equal rights. So the answer to question 1 is B. Question 2. Everyone deserves to enjoy certain freedoms and to have the opportunity to obtain a reasonable quality of life. And it's exactly the same question. Which principle is addressed in the statement? And you've got exactly the same options of A, B, C, and D. Limited government, minority rights, popular sovereignty, and natural rights philosophy. So if everyone deserves certain freedoms and to have the opportunity to obtain a reasonable quality of life, I think this is something, this is a limited government. It's not about limited government. It's about what we all deserve. Minority rights, it's not really about majority minority. Popular sovereignty, I don't think it's popular sovereignty, because that's all about the fact that people allow the government to govern. Natural rights philosophy looks to me like the right answer. Natural rights, it's the rights that it's this belief, this philosophy that everybody has this God-given right to freedom and happiness, and that's an opportunity. And this is saying everyone deserves to enjoy certain freedoms and to have the opportunity to obtain a reasonable quality of life. So I think the answer there is D. Do you see that? I hope you do. Question 3, very similar pattern. This short statement, and then we've got this which principle is addressed with the same answers. Let's look at the statement. Citizens are able to voice their opinions on the rules and laws by which they are expected to live. So this is, yes, there's the law of the land, but you have your opinion on it, and let's go through them. Limited government. This isn't about limited government. This is about the people. Minority rights. No, this isn't about minority rights. Popular sovereignty. That looks very like the right answer, because that's all about the fact that citizens are able to allow the government to govern, and they're a very important part of the process. So I think it's C. And natural rights philosophy, no, I think it's C. Question 4. The Scottish philosopher John Locke, who actually had a big influence on Jefferson. The Scottish philosopher John Locke declared that the duty of government is to protect people's rights to life, liberty, and property. Which principle is that? The duty of government is to protect people's rights to life, liberty, and property. Limited government? No, I don't think so. Minority rights? No, I don't think so. Popular sovereignty? No. No, I don't think so. I think this is D again. Natural rights philosophy. And the last one, question 5. At the time the US Constitution was written, the federal government was not permitted to raise money for itself and had to depend on the states to provide the funds needed to operate the country. So the federal government was not permitted. They weren't allowed to. They weren't very powerful, the federal government. They couldn't raise taxes. What's this about? Limited government? Well, that sounds like it. Straight away, that their power was so limited that they couldn't raise money for themselves. B, minority rights. I don't think it's about that. C, popular sovereignty. No. And D, natural rights philosophy. So I think the answer to question 5 is A, limited government.